Martin Daniel, Representative Jerome Moon, and Representative Justin Lafferty. And then for our staff, we have our Director of Grassroots Operations, Sam Nino. We have our Grassroots Engagement Director, Justin Cornett, for the Tri-Cities area, and our Grassroots Engagement Director, Josh Frampton, for Knoxville and Chattanooga areas. So thank you all for coming. So I'm going to kick it off and just talk briefly about the amazing policy victories that we had this year at legislative session. And then we'll go one by one to each of the members, and they'll talk about their biggest victories this year. And then we'll open it up to Q&A at the end, okay? So AFP, we set up a pretty broad legislative agenda this year. We were going to focus on areas of justice reform, healthcare reform. We were working on some cronyism, adding more transparency to government, and of course, expanding educational freedom. So we set the bar high, and we either won or made tremendous gains in each of these areas. So I'm going to kick it off with criminal justice reform. That was really our highest priority this year. It was something that was new to our organization, and the reason we kind of shifted gears a little bit. We're not just the low tax, less government group. We're also focusing on these justice issues because we realize that you cannot have economic freedom unless you have freedom in the first place. So with that, the areas that we worked on alongside Governor Lee's administration, one was to remove the state expungement fee. And the biggest reason for that is so currently the state expungement fee would be $180 to $350 to remove a criminal charge from your record. And that is the biggest barrier to folks being able to get employment. Now, obviously, not everything's eligible for expungement, but of the charges that are, we want to give people that clean slate so that they can return to the workforce and provide for their families. I mean, it's just good common sense. So we were happy to see that pass this year. They can still charge a local fee, and some local municipalities will charge, I think, up to $100. But we'd like to see that go away entirely. If someone's eligible to have their record wiped clean, we'd like to see that without an additional cost to them. And then citation in lieu of arrest. So there's a policy currently that says that law enforcement can just write a citation instead of arresting someone for a low-level nonviolent crime if they think that the individual is not going to continue the action. And so there was some language in that made it seem like they had to also guarantee, the law enforcement officer had to guarantee that person was going to show up to their court date. Well, obviously that's not the role for police to determine if someone's going to show up to a court date or not. So we expanded the existing citation in lieu of arrest policy so that we're not locking up people that we're mad at, we're locking up people that are a danger to society. And there's really a big difference between that. Someone that, commits a minor act of vandalism, come on in.
Can I listen?
Yeah, absolutely, have a seat. So, we wanted to make sure that if someone, commits a minor crime, we're not spending taxpayer resources to lock up someone when there's definitely other folks that would actually be a better fit for that situation. So, citation in lieu of arrest, expungements. We worked on voting rights restoration. Did you know that Tennessee is the only state in the nation that ties the restoration of your voting rights to whether or not you're current on your child support obligations? We're the only state that does that. That passed in 2006. And the problem with it is that even though we did that in 2006, it does not increase compliance of people paying their child support, not one bit. So even if people are out of jail and they get a job and they start providing for their families and are paying their child support, if they have the arrears, the back payments from when they were incarcerated, they will not be able to regain their voting rights, and that would otherwise be eligible, would not be able to regain their voting rights until after that debt is paid up to date. So we're going to work on some issue education around that and see how people really feel about that and see if that's something that we're going to be able to move the needle on, or at least move it to where they're currently paying child support instead of currently up to date on child support. It's a tremendous use of taxpayer resources to verify that for each and every individual as they go through the process to get their rights restored. And it's just two things that are tied together that probably are not the best suited to be tied together. So we, educational freedom, as you all know, that ESA bill, it passed the House. It was a hard-fought battle. We were in a supportive stance because the bill changed tremendously throughout. We're gonna support educational freedom. We support every child in Tennessee having access to a great education. Your zip code should not determine what kind of education you get. So whatever that looks like, whether it's public school choice and you're able to go to any public school, any other charter school, any private school, any homeschool, whatever that looks like, we're gonna be supportive of it. But we do understand that they had to start somewhere and that it's best to be able to show the results for the 2 counties that have the worst school systems to show how they've actually improved for the children and the teachers in those areas. That's what's important to show, to prove it. Put our money where our mouth is, right? So that will continue being supportive of educational freedom, but I don't anticipate anything like that coming up next year. And then, so healthcare reform, I'll let Representative Daniel talk about ending certificates of need and why that's a total con on us as consumers that raises our healthcare costs and reduces access to care. That's all I'll say about that. We were very happy to see the professional privilege tax cut. That's a $22 million tax cut. 15 of the 19 professions, I believe, are no longer have to pay a $400 tax for the privilege of working in their chosen profession. Tennessee is, as you know, it's a right to work state. And to think that we're combining, calling something a privilege to work and making someone pay an additional tax just for the privilege of working, it was wrong in the first place. We're an income tax free state. That's just the income tax by another name. It's something that we should absolutely do away with. So we were very ecstatic to see that as well. And then lots of occupational licensure reforms. We finally saw the hair braiding bill this year where that got reduced the hours. Did you know that hair braiders, not a full cosmetology degree, just to be able to braid hair, you had to have hundreds of hours of training in order to be able to braid hair. So they were finally able to reduce that down to just something where they would register and have 16 hours of sanitation training. And while we don't think, if you can braid hair, you can braid hair. There's no reason why we should put a barrier to entry for people just to braid hair for something that they already know how to do. And pay, by the way, thousands of dollars for the educational training required to get that certification. So we're glad to see opportunity expanded in those areas. And we're going to continue to work with the legislature on anything that we can that's going to break down barriers, it's going to create opportunities for everyone. So I appreciate you letting me give my whole spiel. Forgive me, I'm a little bit rusty. It's the first one I've done in a while. And with that, I'm going to kick it over to Representative Martin Daniel.